butter you up. What's your prediction for the fight?
Butter me up.
How do you think this one plays out?
Who saw Brian Mendoza's muscles? Yeah, I mean he had some muscles, and Tim didn't, or not as many. I thought this was 60-40 for Tim. I think it's 55-45 for Tim, man. I think this is gonna be a tough one. Brian's smart. He's super, super courageous. He might not have the style that will impress the judges for 12 rounds, but I think he's got the style that will keep him alive in the fight for 12 rounds, This ain't going to be no 1-2 round situation either way, but I think Brian's got some tricks up his sleeve. I will say that.
Given what you said about his style,
Yeah.
does he have to knock Tim out to win?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes you just never know what judges are looking at sometimes, but you just have to take into account that the judges, I'm sure, that will be there tomorrow night are judges that have seen Tim before, their minds are kind of trained to see Tim. If you're not trained to see both guys, you're really just kind of looking at this one-sided. I'm not picking on any judges or anything like that, just kind of telling the truth. When we do see decisions that are wrong, and we can look at a judge that was way off, sometimes that judge is a little fixated on what they expected to see opposed to what's actually there, So what I expect to see is a Brian Mendoza that's bouncing, moving, trying to keep Tim off balance and find moments. I really don't see Tim giving a lot of moments away, So when you look at that, you look at his aggression and the fact that he could possibly connect a little more than Brian. If that's the case, I think Brian does need a knockout in order to win this fight.
Tim has talked about that he would entertain a move to middleweight in the future. How do you think Tim would do at middleweight?
I think he's got to stay at junior. I think he's got to really solidify himself and take over. I think from a standpoint of him being busy, this is fantastic. Borderline amazing to see him be as active as he's been. And on top of that, he's really performed. But at the same time, he's still got some growing to do. And I think, choosing my words carefully, but I will be blunt. He's got to be safe at this point, and it doesn't get safer when you move up, 54 doesn't have the kind of challenges as 60, So before he makes that move, I think he should take over, grow just a little bit more, and of course, grow physically as well.
On that episode of the podcast you released yesterday, you talked about that you don't think Charlo's going to go back to 154. I guess where do you think Charlo goes next, if not 154?
I told the No Limit guys, I think a fight ago, that they wouldn't be seeing Jermell Charlo in the ring. They'll never see Jermell Charlo in the ring. I think if Tim were to chase him, he'd have to chase him to 60. As bad as Jermell performed in his last fight, doesn't look like he has any intentions on fighting again. But at the same time, when you fight that bad, you kind of have to come back to erase everybody's memory, So it's really tough to say what Jermell's going to do moving forward. 154 ain't going to be it. I will say that.
Does Tim have cut-through in the States? Like, are people actually, they know who he is? Is he a big deal?
They know who he is. I think this is the one.
Yeah.
I think you guys have wanted the last one and the one before that to be the one. I truly do think that this is his third fight this year. And when you're that active, nobody can ignore you being third fight in 1 year, especially when you have been the number one guy, the number one guy, and you haven't had to take on these challenges. So nobody can ignore that. On top of that, Brian's last performance, he's got somewhat of a hot name now too, So I think this is really the one that solidifies Tim as the guy at 154. He's got to get over this, man. This is a hump for him, I think it's going to be a tough fight. And, I just said this live on TV. If we don't see the same Tim that we saw in the last fight and the fight before that, guess what? Styles make fights. This is a really tough guy, and just because he struggles against Brian, guess what? You stepped up to another level. And you may struggle once you get there, but once you get there, you taste it, you become better from it, So I think we've all seen Tim, especially me, seen Tim grow right in front of my eyes. Now two outings, this being the third, and I think he's got some more growing to do. Sometimes you see the growing pains on fight night.
If
Charlo's not coming back, how long do you think he should be allowed to keep those belts before they strip
I thought he was stripped. That's how I feel about it. I feel if you move, especially 2 weight classes out of your weight limit, you haven't fought in over a year in that weight. Why does he have belts? I didn't know he had belts. I don't talk about belts because, as you can see, it's bullshit.
If he doesn't come down, what sort of fights do you think Tim should sort of look at?
You know, I think we because Tim's been in that number 1 position for so long, we kind of look at Tim now like he's the guy. And it's okay with being the guy, you know? Be the guy for a little while, you know? You taking on 3 challenges. He gets past Brian. And, you know, just keep picking them and keep knocking them down. You know, get to the top of 154 and stay there as long as you can, you know?
Crawford's talked about a fight with Canelo in the future and wanting that fight sort of next. Do you think that's a realistic possibility for Crawford? And do you think he could actually get the win against Canelo?
If Terrence wants to do it, he will do it. And if Terrence wants to do it, he knows he can do it. I would actually be betting on Terrence Crawford to win that fight.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Yeah, you guys got it.